was nothing, just lights in the trees, a trick of the frost, a ghost on the breeze. But I saw a mirror older than me, staring through time like it wanted to speak. The forest went silent, the world held its breath. Something was watching beyond life and death. We stepped through the green, boots breaking the seal, not chasing a light, but something too real. I came back with salt on my skin, my mind split wide where the storm got in. They call it a test, but I know the deal. History blinks beneath the green veil. Yeah.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to our review of Chapter 7, the Reclamation Code, and our preview of Chapter 8, Shadow Mirror. Gentlemen, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, Bill. How are you doing?
Doing great, John.
It's an interesting week. That's all I can say.
And before we actually get into the review of the last week's episode, like you mentioned, there's been this has been an interesting week. We had the hearing. We also had some new news regarding Atlas, 3i Atlas. And before we started the show, you were mentioning to Chris and I about some of the new details that are emerging out there about 3i Atlas. So can you fill us again in and the audience?
Well, there were two different pieces that were sent to me this week. One, and they're both being evaluated by people. I haven't vetted the people, but they appear to be people that are involved in science and understand what's going on. And the one particular piece was laying out what the characteristics of what Atlas is showing to include is turning green. It's got plasma around it, which was talked about last week too, but it's not showing the characteristics of a comet in a lot of different ways. And I think more and more people, because so much else is going on too, haven't been following as closely. But with some of this new data coming out, people are starting to wonder a little bit about what really is coming towards us. And then the other one that came out was there's been a communications from it to Earth. And the strange thing about that kind of made me stop was I've been told this earlier in the week by some people that I'm not going to sit there and say they're high-level people, sources. There are people that have a grasp of what's going on inside government, and there's been rumors circulating around that there's been an attempt from communications from this object to Earth. Plus, the last thing is the Earth frequencies are modulating right now. They're changing. So that's some of the other factor is people are acting strange. And I get the incident that took place midweek, but the reaction from both sides have been really, really strange. To include today, over 1 million people plus marched in England and London. And there's been vigils everywhere across the country. So there's clearly something going on right now. Does it tie into this? I don't know for sure, but there's a lot of weird stuff happening all at once.
Chris, what's your take?
Well, I'm just pulling up this and that they're calling it Atlas is wrapped around some kind of carbon dioxide fog that they're saying now. We all know that the Earth has frequencies coming from it. You know, there's a surrounding of electromagnetic waves that encapsulate the Earth. And if John is saying what's correct is that the frequencies are starting to modulate here on Earth, I'm not a big fan of coincidences. You know, it happens that this is all of a sudden starting where we're getting this frequency change or modulation change and stuff. And then this object is approaching, and then there's some people saying that, well, there's signals coming from it. I mean, maybe it's not communicating with us. Maybe it's communicating with something within the Earth.
I would also keep in mind that October 29th seems to be a date of interest. I believe that's the day where it's going to come from behind the sun, because it's going to be pretty much blocked by our sun, and then it may come into a visual aspect, whether we see it with the James Webb, the Hubble, whatever other satellites or anything that we can use to detect it and analyze it better. But that seems to be the date a lot of people are pointing to. Even Luna mentioned that date specific. You guys hearing anything about this?
Well, there's one more thing that I'll address.
Okay.
It hasn't been made public yet, but the actual sun is partly involved with all this, and it's going to get close to the sun first. So it could very well be whatever this is. And here's where it's interesting. There's people speculating. Well, some people just believe it's a comet, which it could be. Some people think it's an alien invasion, probably doubtful. But if this was sent from somewhere or for some reason has been in, I think this was lost a few weeks ago. This is billions of years old. And then there's some people tying to biblical stuff, that if it's something that was put out there as a harmonic activation or interface, it very well could be triggering something the sun and with Earth. That doesn't mean it's coming from a planet with people wanting to invade us or to probe us or even totally to observe us, but it could be coming here to change something or elevate something. As a lot of people have speculated, we are evolving. Not only are we evolving, but there's native culture that believe we will evolve into a different dimension. So that's all the weird stuff that ties into all this. Never mind the amount of craziness that's going on right now on this planet.
It's not out of the realm of possibility that even if you look at what we've done with Voyagers, the 1 and 2, and sent it out there, and it's still traveling in space. Obviously, it has a different composition, a different shape, etc. And I don't think it's going to last billions of years. But if an advanced civilization were to do something like this could have the same type of a makeup so that it can survive vast distances, travel at high speeds.
Well, Bill, what I was saying about the billion years, there were scientists that came out and said this was around before our solar system.
Right. No, I get that.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's what I mean. So was it involved in our solar system, creation of our solar system? That's what I mean. If everything was peachy pie on planet Earth right now and everything was kind of normal, whatever normal is nowadays, then it would just be not as strange. But there's so many things that are going on right now that just make you stop and wonder, you know what I mean?
Well,
what's going on?
Chris, before you respond to that, there's an interesting question coming from the chat from Genghis Khan. That makes me think of those remote viewing sessions on the FOIA. I think there was one about seeing some type of ancient equipment deep underground that could form some type of connection with other. But what if that's happening right now? Chris, you can respond to John and then respond to this.
Well, let me respond to
what you want to say
first, because actually that's what I said just earlier. I said, suppose it's not trying to connect with us. Suppose the frequencies are something in the earth or the earth itself or something buried in the earth. It may not be trying to communicate with us, but there may be something that it's communicating with. That's number one. Number two, what John said, NASA's putting out that this object does have a cocoon around it. So they're actually saying that. But here's the interesting thing that they put out about it. It's not like a typical comet. Some people say, well, it's a comet. But the composition differs dramatically from the usual comets, resembles Mars' atmosphere. It actually resembles Mars' atmosphere. They say that comets are generally hydrogen-rich and born from planetary nebula. 3I Atlas appears to have been born in an oxidized planetary environment like Mars. So here now we're saying, okay, it didn't come from a rock in outer space. There's a good possibility maybe it came from a planet.
Right. Similar to Mars.
Well,
but
Mars.
John, before you continue, but the reason I brought up his question is because John has mentioned that at Rendlesham, there may be something underground there.
It's in the Green Veil.
Exactly.
It's coming up.
Well,
But no, guys, this is not, okay, it's in the Green Veil, but it's real. There is something underground there.
do they know what it is, John?
That's where I don't have all the data. There's something buried in that area underground, under this burial ground. It's there. And if part of the book title is Home of the Shield, all you have to do is research Rendlesham in the forest, and it'll tell you that there's something buried there underground. There is something to that area and what's causing this phenomenon that's really taking place there. So none of this is science fiction that we're talking about right now. And I think somebody said similar areas around the world. There are other areas around the world that are like Rendlesham. Rendlesham is real. Rendlesham has something buried underground, and there's a phenomenon there, just like there is in other areas of the world.
All right,
This
John,
is
let me
not
ask you,
science fiction. This is real.
let me ask you this. If we know that there's something buried there, would you think that by now that they either know what it is or try to dig it up? I would think their first thought is, well, there's something buried there. Maybe we ought to find out what it is.
There's a good possibility it has been done, yes. Now, just remember one thing. This is where it gets really kind of hokey, but go to Indiana Jones. If you disturb certain areas, certain things can go wrong. So what's buried there is buried under an ancient burial ground of a civilization that existed a long time ago.
All right, that's interesting because I've never heard of Rendlesham having a burial ground. So,
It's in the weaponization book. It's in the book. When we went over there, we went out to the area where the burial grounds are, and within the burial grounds when we were there were weird orbs and stuff that showed up in pictures when we were standing out there in this area. It's Soho or something, I can't remember. I don't have the notes in front of me, but there's a very ancient culture that was there that is buried there, and there's something buried underground there, for real. This is not made up science fiction.
All right.
And one last thing. I'm not over there, but I've had two people contact me and tell me in the past 10 days the place is becoming active again.
when you say active, what do you mean by active?
Stuff is starting to happen in the forest area with orbs and different things.
Same thing as before, then.
Yes, the same thing as before.
Okay. And that's interesting because the last time we talked about the Green Veil, we were focused on Jack Barrett, that it was communicating with him. It was focusing its attention, this frequency, this harmony that was taking place was focusing on Jack. And that Jack, when he was, let's say, in that portal or that dimensional bubble that was in there, was actually giving a signal out to people on the outside that they could record. I don't know if they could interpret, but they could record that harmonic signal. Because remember, Sergeant B, he remembers hearing a harmonic, wasn't a voice, but he remembers hearing a harmonic noise.
Right. But see, that's the problem, okay? People that are tied to nuts and bolts ufology believe it's a craft with biological beings like us that would communicate with us like we communicate. And
I don't think it's a craft anymore, John. I'm going to be honest with you.
well, I understand, but a lot of people still do. And that's the problem, that if you go back and you just have to look at Mirage Man, and when they interviewed these scientists and stuff, they made it clear in there what we've been told, starting from the War of the Worlds going forward, is not what's really going on. Edgar Mitchell told me that personally before he died. So what we're dealing with is not what we've been sold on TV and in books and everything else. It's different. And the fact of the matter is, as soon as stuff comes out, they immediately have this preconditioned thoughts of how it should act and what it should be doing. It's just like with whatever this is coming towards us. Is it coming towards us just to activate? It's been here before. It was existed before our solar system existed. But no one wants to talk about that.
So here's what I'm getting from chapter 7, and this is what I'm feeling that this is about. So we're not talking anything extraterrestrial. I'm going to throw that right out of the window. I'm talking about stuff that's interdimensional, and let's throw a little spiritual into this thing.
Or NHI.
What's that, John? What's that? Yeah.
NHI.
And it's, of course, when the interdimensional stuff, we got to include energy into it. But I'm looking at parallel timelines within this sphere of energy, where you go in, you meet your either past or future self, and the only way that could happen is that you have to be on another timeline. And there now the question is,
Chris, if you're in a time dilation bubble, you are in a different timeline.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, but you got parallel timelines because you're meeting yourself in there. Now the question is this, and we talked about this a little before, and I kind of thought this was a great thing that Bill kind of made him. Was it you that actually came back? Or should I say, was it actually Jack Barrett that came back? Okay, was it Jack Barrett? Was it a different Jack Barrett? See, now, if you look at this whole thing, right, because B goes in to rescue you. You have a rescue mission. They create a bubble. They were able to duplicate the frequencies, the harmony, in order to duplicate a bubble to come and get you. They were first thinking of containment. And then the Lieutenant Colonel, I think it's Lieutenant Colonel, am I right on that? Denning?
Yeah.
Okay. Denning was kind of thrown out of the picture because he was brainwashed. He was pre-programmed to have certain triggers. They didn't want that happening because Hunter Green took over. And he didn't want any part of Denning. Am I correct on that?
Well, he was picked, and there are certain groups that are picked to deal with certain situations that have been preconditioned. So, like, for example, I'll give you an example. If you have a fighter pilot and he's flying a top secret aircraft, the plane crashes. The plane's destroyed, but the pilot is still there. They can program these pilots to have no memory at some point, where they, even if they're caught and interrogated, they will have no knowledge anymore of what they're. But
here's the difference with Denning, though. Denning wasn't having anything extracted. He was having stuff inputted. He was having trigger words.
Yeah, but Denning experienced something that they didn't want him. He wanted him to deal with it a certain way and then not remember it afterwards.
Right.
To not just him, but to a few of you.
Yes, everybody.
Well, they did it to everybody that was involved. They tried to reprogram their memories, but they kept emphasizing that Denning had these trigger words. Anyways, so the thing that I'm getting is when you come back, when you get rescued, okay, or Jack gets rescued, is it you? Is it the same you that goes in as opposed to coming out?
Well, and I want to add to that. Wait, before you answer that, I want to add to Chris's. I want to jump on that. Could it also be that, first of all, did you just experience one aspect of yourself in there, or were there multiples? And do you think maybe the memories were infused together in your body and you have memories of both, and you also have that connection because of this experience to your future self, and that's how everything ties together and the signal activates, because you're still connected to your future self?
Well, think of it this way, all right?
Is that crazy, Chris? That's
no, but think of it this way, and I want to answer something that was brought up, okay, by in the chat, okay? But I'll answer it this way. If I went forward and I met with my future self in the future, would there not be a gateway from when I came back to the past to the future. So you could go
Well, there has to
and
be.
but you could you could learn everything you needed to know about the future because I traveled to the future. So
Okay.
there would be a gateway going forward.
Yeah. There's no question about that. There's no
Right.
dispute about that. But what I'm saying to you is that when Sergeant B goes into the time dilation and he sees you, is it you, the actual Jack Barrett that goes in,
Couldn't be.
to another Jack Barrett that comes out?
It couldn't be totally me because I left and I phased into the
Right.
future and I came back, so that would have changed me. I mean, real world is what is this group trying to study? They're trying to study people's DNA
And
and
consciousness.
consciousness.
Right.
So that's real. That's not
That's
made up.
actually answering my question, John, is that you were not the same Jack
There's a
Barrett.
good
that
chance
goes
you're
in
right. There's a
and
good chance
comes out.
I changed. Right. And now, to answer the
No,
question before we go
this is a
further,
different Jack Barrett. Why is he on the show? It's not the same guy we know.
well, listen, it said what was going on at the time. Okay. 1980. During our event, our 3-night event, the Buddhist monks were in Hopi, in the enclave with the Hopi elders. They were inside together during the time of our event. I found evidence of that for real. So the Buddhism and Native were working together when our event took place in Hopi, in Arizona.
Completely unaware, obviously, of what was going on in Rendlesham.
Were they? Or were they influencing Rendlesham? Guess who showed up and showed interest in Jack Barrett?
You mentioned this in the past on past shows.
Yeah.
That the Hopis had that understanding about the DNA and the awakening and the resonance and the harmonics within all of us. We all
And what is Buddhism all about?
come in.
Consciousness, collective consciousness. They were together at that time in Hopi during our event. And the Hopi showed up later and showed interest in what happened.
That's interesting. Now I have Chris, follow me on this because I'm just, you know how this is evolving, coming up with different concepts, ideas of how this is moving forward. When this experiment occurred, this project, and it was all about the Soviet satellite, did they know, obviously, that this was going to be the side effect? I believe you said no, this was something else that happened on the field. You guys happened to be there at the time. I'm not so sure if this was purposely planned, that you guys were out there at that certain time when this was going down. But my further question is, did that incident also help discover a connection to what was underground? Or did they already know something was underground and they were doing it there for a reason to see if it would activate under these circumstances?
That's coming up. I'm just telling you, it's all explained coming up.
Well, the one thing that is interesting that we find out, you will find out, is what happened with the Soviet satellite.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Soviet satellite now takes puts a spin on what they were actually trying to do. The other thing is, too...
Which is chapter 8, folks.
Right. The other thing is, too, is that Jack Barrett was instructed to go back into that. The second time around, it wasn't an accident. Him and Sergeant B were instructed to go there. Now, the question I have for you is John, why did Jack Barrett get taken and not Sergeant B? Sergeant B was not taken the same as Jack Barrett.
Well, it's possible I didn't totally return from the first encounter.
Okay, but would Sergeant B be returning as the same?
Well, what if what returned the first time was from the future, not the present?
That's what I was trying to
We were
figure
saying
out.
that earlier, John, that You not the same Jack Barrett that went in.
But that doesn't mean
Came back
that
out.
the second encounter happened, the future went back and the present came back.
I understand, but what I'm saying to you is that the Jack Barrett that went into that vortex is not the same Jack Barrett that came out.
The second
Not-
time.
The second time.
Yes, could be. Very possibly.
And the first time, I believe that something, not physically, but probably implanted with a frequency or something. I believe I said this before, and I'll say it again. You were a conduit because you were giving off signals that they were tracking.
Could be.
Could you
Also,
We
wait
can't-
a minute. I want to throw another curveball.
There we go.
Okay, let's just say the first time was an accident. I went and I didn't come back. Okay, the future came back for a reason to work with the present, and
Because the
then,
timeline is screwed up?
huh?
Because the timeline is screwed up?
Yes, and then the future went back, but there was a plant put in the future for the present to track the future. Now, I'll give you an example of how you could think of this hypothetically. There was a TV show, all right, who wanted to steal a nuclear bomb. They went back and stole it, and they hid it. Then they went back to the present, and then the nuclear bomb, they knew where it was buried, and they uncovered it and then utilized it. So back in the past, it was a lot easier to do things than there is in the future. So they stole something from the past, buried it, knowing they knew where it would be when they went back to the future timeline.
Is this also? I mean, there's something like you said that's buried underneath Rendlesham and possibly in other locations around the globe.
Yes.
Could have done that intentionally the same way.
Could the future came back to do what?
To put something underground to activate later on in the future.
That could have happened. Yes.
How do we know it wasn't a lost civilization? A civilization that, remember, the Earth is what, 4.5 billion years old?
Yeah.
I believe that there's been many civilizations besides us. I think that, during the course of those years, civilization has started again and again and again.
Right. And actually, the Bible claims we had the great flood and wiped everything out.
Right.
And then it came back.
Right.
Sumerians also describe it, the flood, the Great Flood as well, which is actually older than biblical record.
We don't know the technology that other civilizations have had here on Earth. They could have been more advanced than us, or more primitive than us. And what's every buried there could be ours, or it could be somebody else's. Right,
Well,
John?
is it all connected to NHI of the future? Not extraterrestrial. This is some type of an interdimensional NHI consciousness thing that we're dealing
One thing John has never done, he's never used the word alien.
with. No.
Nope.
He's always used NHI, AI.
Well, even way back, I never called it alien.
Right. That's what it says. You never used the word
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
and stuff. So that leads me to believe that this was something on within interdimensional vortex. Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Raise my hand. Only because if, let's just say, I'm just saying, if something is sending out a signal as an activation, a resonance,
Right.
harmonic, and this is activated, say at Rendlesham and other places, is there a way that we already have the observational technology to know that the signal is actually going to be reactivated? Because I'm sure when all this was going on, they have to know when something might be about to pop off, so to speak. So you think they have equipment that can analyze and detect that the signal is about to come back the way it did in the past?
They duplicated it.
Exactly. So they must know, right?
But you have to ask another question. Hypothetically, if the future came back and planted something, would the technology of today be able to override that technology?
So we don't even have a choice. It's just going to automatically activate whether we have the technology or not. It's already pre-planned.
Without giving the plot away for Series 8 or
Chapter
8. The key that I'm thinking about would be the destiny of the Soviet satellite, what actually happened to it, because I think that kind of leans towards a lot of what's going on with the way it was not discovered, but let's say downed and then rediscovered.
Well, it was reported it was downed and destroyed.
Yes, but that's not the case.
No, it wasn't. No.
Whatever happened to the team of Soviet military personnel that was there to observe? Did they get access to them and wipe their minds out too, or do you know?
Yeah, they wiped them out.
So everybody, like Chris said earlier, everybody who was in contact or knew they took.
The one thing, though, that I'd like to find out more about is Lieutenant Colonel Denning. Why one was he put there? I know, and what kind of brainwashing or what did they implant into him with the trigger words that he would be part of that program and then taken out? It doesn't really explain a whole bit about that. Hunter Green comes in and says, "You're out, I'm in. I report directly to the CIA director, and you're going to take your orders from me."
But Chris, he might have been like, there's a lot of chaos going. We don't even know what happened to Jack Barrett. There's so much stuff going on. We need to get a tight lid on this. We need to contain it, control it. I'm in control. He's compromised because of whatever's going on. I'm the man. I'm taking control of this.
I understand that. But the thing is, why put him there in the first place?
Okay. All right. You got to go to MK Ultra, which is real. Everybody agrees with that, I hope. They were working on MK Ultra for real.
Say that again, John?
The United States government had a program called MK Ultra. It was real. Okay. That program was to be able to control, manipulate people. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. If you had, let's say you were at a base. All right. You had a base, you had a facility, and there was stuff going on. It's called need to know. So the people that were at the main base would have no idea for sure what's really going on at the other facility. Most people at the other facility don't know other than the compartmentalized stuff that they're working on.
Sounds like an SAP program. That's what happens.
Sounds like what?
An SAP program. People.
Yes. So you have to have people available when something goes wrong that are already programmed to come in and take care of a situation like the cleanup people, but they're solely programmed and controlled to handle the situation, and then afterwards they don't even remember what they did.
The thing is, though, John, getting you back wasn't their first thought, because they said they wanted to contain this.
Yes.
So, but that changed after they were getting signals from you.
Right. Imagine if, let's just say, for example, they were doing something. Something wandered in, something happened. How are they going to explain it? Well, they're pretty good at doing that. They'll eventually figure out a cover story and people will
Sure.
But they had to worry about not only what happened to the people, but the base itself and other people. So they had an issue with that. Okay. But then they realized there was more to what happened. They weren't even expecting to happen. And then when they started studying it, they realized the effects, and the people that had it happen to them were very vital to what was going forward with what they've learned.
Forward on what the possible information they get in the future by accessing something like this?
The way they could turn it into a weapon, yes.
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah,
sense.
they were. I got the sense that they were trying to weaponize it, right, probably from chapter 4. But the thing was, one of the things that struck me as interesting is that their ability, or I should say, the frequencies. Or I'm going to call it the frequency, the vortex frequency within, was also learning. It was a mutual thing. I think it was absorbing information from you, John, to learn stuff. Because in the chapter, it talks about the frequency, extracting information, because they were trying to shut that down, but yet it had already learned.
Right.
I want to add to that. Do you think that when you were in this time distortion bubble, there was a total exchange of memories from both of you going into each other? In other words, it found out everything about you because it's your past self, and then you found out everything about your future self. So you both had that, like Chris is kind of saying, that shared experience of having.
Well, you would think that the future would know what the past was all about, right? So as I evolve, I remember my past.
John,
So it would be less.
Okay, wait a minute though. If that may not necessarily be true, because if they removed memories from you after 1980, you're still vague, and you still get recall. So maybe the future self has complete recall after, because you I think you would admit that you still get recall of memories, like pieces being put together, but it has all the pieces already. Your future self probably has all the answers, but you have, what I mean?
let me piggyback on that.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I have a theory that the future John and the future Jack Barrett and the Jack Barrett that entered the vortex, their consciousness merged.
I agree. Oh, he's a little shaky on that one. I agree with you, Chris. I think there's definitely some connection.
In the series, in one of the chapters, it talks about what they're kind of describing. They may not have said it, but they're describing a consciousness or an exterior of Jack Barrett outside his body, which I interpreted as a consciousness. So could the two consciousnesses have merged?
Well, okay, let's throw another curveball. Let's just say there's a defining moment in time that influenced the future. And the future is screwed up. And they trace that defining moment back to a certain point, and then they have to go back to do cleanup on aisle 3 to try to make the future better.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say, here's the paradox, right? They always say don't go back and change anything, right? Because if something happens, say for example, Bill, they come back and they killed somebody by accident. That particular person has no relevance at that moment, but let's just say they were going to have a child that did.
Right.
Or they figured something out later and invented something, or they were in college. So what I'm getting at is, even if they came back from the future to the past, whatever they did in the past may have not made the future exactly the way they thought it would be when they returned.
Well, John, could they have seen exactly what you're saying? But let's say that they wanted to correct the future. They had to go back in order to readjust things, which is a theory that I think a lot of people are now holding on to, that time travel can go back in the past and, like you say, put it on a different timeline. Let's say whatever happened in the past shifted to a different timeline that the future didn't want it to be on, and put it on the right timeline. Go back, straighten it out, and put it on the right timeline.
Okay, let's put it to you this way, okay? If you're in the present, you would have more control on the future than the future would have on the present. Because the present could view forward if they had the ability to see all the things that went wrong. And they would have a better way of controlling and keeping those things from happening. But again, even then, like I'll give you an example. Do you remember when the Hindenburg blew up?
Yeah.
There were people on it that died that if they hadn't died would have completely changed everything. There were people on that Hindenburg. So if you would have kept the Hindenburg from blowing up, everything going forward would have changed because of those people would have still been around. It's just like now people are shook up, right? You go back, what would the world have been like if John F. Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln,
Right.
all these people that have died now, if they existed and went forward,
Benevolent or malevolent in nature.
how much different would we be a different society if they lived instead of died?
Well, of course, sure.
Right. So that plays into the whole timeline theory and everything else. Now, throw in an ancient technology that can manipulate the timeline and change it completely at its own.
Why do you say ancient technology if it's something that may be coming from the future? Because it's been here that long?
It's been here it's been here forever. Yeah.
What I gotta, Chris, I see if you follow me, because we're trying to still guess of what's coming. He's probably not going to answer this question.
Which one has he answered yet?
But are we dealing with human biologicals in the future who have control of this technology, this NHI, and maybe they see our current development of NHI merging with consciousness as a threat, and they're trying to change that for humanity now?
How do we know?
I'm guessing. What would their purpose be other than what's going on right now? What is coming up that they want to change? Because obviously it seems like it's going to happen in our present time.
Remember
What exactly is it? What?
About seeing himself and using the movie Contact,
Right.
and that there was we thought you'd be more comfortable with this figure. So that has to play into it too.
But what are we dealing with in the future? Is it a NHI consciousness itself that's doing all this? Is it biological in nature behind the technology? Like, that's what I'm fascinated on. Like,
Is it artificial intelligence?
that's what I mean. But what's
artificial intelligence is a tool of NHI.
Yeah. But you even though it's a tool, you could still be directly interfacing with artificial intelligence. Right?
No, well, okay. Artificial intelligence is just what we tell it. So everything we understand as humanity is going into AI. And NHI, think of it, how scary this would be if NHI could go in and manipulate that consciousness.
Well, but they would have to use AI to do it, right, John?
Sure, they would have to manipulate it, because what's happening right now, more and more people don't pay attention to common sense or critical thinking. They completely rely on what somebody tells them or what AI is doing. And it's happening more and more. Now, I want to answer a question. He asked about, is the Hopi prophecy true? According to the Hopi elders, yes. And I've been with them, and I've been up on Hopi.
But he also, Bob asked, C&D boy says, and I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but the prophecy of the Blue Kachina.
Yes.
It is that?
Yes.
That is fascinating.
And we're supposed to be ready to evolve to the next level coming up. And the other question is what is coming towards us, which is part of the Blue Kachina lore, is that the trigger? Because in their in their prophecy that there's something that comes to earth and creates the next junk.
The way things are going currently, we could use a change for the better, don't you think?
I don't think we're ready for a change, Bill. Why would
Well-
anything more?
Well, guys, this is where you're going to get spiritual, but if you go on what we've been taught, I'm talking about Christian,
Mhm.
they've been taught, certain people leave, certain people stay. The people that leave
Yeah,
evolve, the people that stay have 7 years to
Yeah.
change, or they live in chaos the rest of their lives. So it's all I'm getting at is that this week has shook me up a little bit. And I mean, it's just things are escalating fast.
we're taking the religion part out of it, but it's more about the evolution of humanity by our DNA being awakened, reactivated to take us to the next step of our evolution. I mean, I'm not mentioning about the spirituality connection. I'm talking about the next step for us by awakening the DNA. Because as you mentioned in the past, you said the Hopi says that it's in our DNA. It's just about awakening it or activating it. So that's what I'm trying to think. Is it more like that? And then people, regardless of faith or non-faith, it's either people accept the forward momentum, or do they go in denial and not accept it? I think there's going to be some kind of a choice that way, if that's what it is, moving forward. Now, I may be completely wrong, but John?
You have to wait and see.
Oh, you see, I'm onto something. You see, when he says stuff like that, that means something.
Well,
like that.
guys, I can tell you, I don't want to blow the next
You see,
chapters, but that's why I'm shook up.
I hear you.
Because what's starting to play out now plays out going forward in the Green Belt, and that's what I'm trying to say. It's spooky. What's starting to happen right now is exactly, and the Green Veil was written for this time frame. It's actually this year.
No, it's what's bizarre.
Yeah.
When did you wait? Because you've mentioned in this past, because we got to wrap up soon, but you mentioned in this past, it was in May or June where it came to you to change the direction when you wrote.
I finished it, and then it was getting close to Memorial Day when I finished the whole thing.
So
and then I sleep overnight when I finished it, and I woke up and I changed half the book.
And when was that?
In May, right before Memorial Day.
This is before they announced 3i Atlas.
Yes.
So like you said, this is kind of, I can understand why you're saying what you just said. It's kind of a weird thing, the way things are coming together. And Chris mentioned about coincidences. I don't know. When there's too many coincidences, that's a pattern to me. I'm just saying. It doesn't become so much of a coincidence anymore. It seems like there's some more substantial here, in my opinion. Chris?
Oh, I kind of agree. I'm kind of looking at what Jinskan, or I can't pronounce his name.
Genghis Khan.
He's talking about kind of like multiverses, looking at the multiverses, and you know that shows like it could be multiverses. Think about, I mean, what's to say that we don't have several timelines? Let's just say there's all kinds of John Burroughs all over the multi-dimensions, multi-universes. And we are one of several Christopher Pernals, Bill Skywatchers, John Burroughs. Only the timeline for all of us are different. Okay, so the John Burroughs of this timeline may be different of the John Burroughs of the other timeline.
Right. Different destiny, different fate.
And stuff. So I'm getting the idea that, like I says, I think this chapter is making me think for that.
Oh my gosh, Chris, you might have made me even think about something else. What if you're able to swap your persona from those dimensions, like he was mentioning.
Or like the consciousness. Let's say the
Yes.
consciousness.
Let's say the consciousness, where you're not actually interacting with your other self, you're trading places.
That's why it says the Jack Barrett that went in may not be the Jack Barrett that came out.
Well, he was probably, that could also be because he was affected not just physically, but consciously, or maybe other ways.
But if your consciousness has changed, if your consciousness is altered, you're not the same person.
Yeah, sure.
Biologically, you may be, but not consciously.
Not if it did something to the DNA.
Then you're both biologically and consciously.
John is like silent. John, come on. What do you think?
It's all explained coming up, guys. I mean, I love the fact that you're thinking this through and you're asking questions, but I don't want to spoil it. And I think the only thing that's making me nervous is how close is this coming to what's really going to happen? It may not be anything, but
I think what you're trying to say, and let's clarify this for the audience, is that the story that you're telling here is now starting to come into realization. You wrote this as a fictional story, correct?
I wrote it as fiction because the hypothesis based on the data that was, like you guys said early on, everything I talk about is real mostly. And what I mean, the technology that we are working on, doing, the capabilities and everything else. Based on all of that and what happened to us, Rendlesham, my experiences with the government and everything else, and some of the memories and stuff, I couldn't write it as real because no one would believe it. So what I'm trying to do was write it as something that very well is possible, and it could technically happen this year. But to be honest, I didn't think it would happen this year. I just figured it'd make a great story for this year, but in the future, this could really happen. But ever since I've wrote it, a lot of the flags in the story are happening for real.
You know, that's what I was just about to say. There's been people who have written fictional books that have come true in the future. I think yours might be just a little sooner.
I agree.
You know? And that your fiction is becoming nonfiction.
Yeah, but that's a little scary. I mean, it's a little scary to do that, is what I mean is we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see how this plays out.
John, I got to ask a serious question, and I know you've got a book coming out in November.
Yeah.
But if things get really serious, and I mean, like, would you release your regression, hypnosis, if that is connected to something that potentially could happen for real? Instead of waiting, like on the book, if things
in the book, I'm gonna not say much about the hypnosis. I'll talk about a little bit of it. I made this clear. People that got upset about Pendleton's binary, this hypnosis is at a whole different level than him coming out and saying he remembered something and wrote it down. What's in this hypnosis is wild. And it's hard for me, it happened in 88, still to come to terms with it.
Is it anything that you use as inspiration for the Green Veil?
Somewhat, yeah. There's pieces of it in there, yes.
So if things were to map out that it's connected, let's just say that this is really going to happen in a profound way, do you think you might have the need to then say, well, look, this is what happened in 88 during my hypnosis regression? Do you think let me put it another way. Is there any appropriate timing that you could see yourself releasing this to the public or at a hearing?
Well, the Green Veil hasn't happened in December, so we're coming up to December. Chris, what do you think? Do you think that you made a statement earlier that humanity probably couldn't deal with this right now anyway? So, I mean, I think that, let's just say Halloween they come out and say, this is it. We're telling you that this is some other civilization or whatever they label it as.
That it is the
What,
real.
what would that do? I mean,
John, that's a good question, and I don't think I can answer it because I think
Would they
the
tell
way
us?
we think, the way we are acting, and everything is so unpredictable right now that I would not be able to answer that because humanity is taking a turn right now, and it's not a spiritual or a good turn. I mean, we're seeing wars breaking out, hostility throughout the world. We're watching just violence, and and I think I'm waiting for a trigger point to happen where people, because Bill and I have been talking about this the last 2 days, the rhetoric of civilization has not toned down. It's increased in the talk of violence. And I think that if an alien civilization came down right now and said, oh, we're here, or let's say even an interdimensional one, even a spiritual one, I think the way that we have been conditioned right now, we would first claim it to be hostile. We would act that way, and then we would suffer the consequences.
But
well,
what?
look at it this way. NHI could be our programmers.
Could be.
That's
Very
something
well
that people need to start considering. That non-human intelligence doesn't mean a non-human intelligence could be a different level of consciousness, which makes our consciousness, not the biological part, but the consciousness different than NHI.
Let me throw this at you, John. If AI is determining our consciousness, our way of thinking, then would you consider AI? I would consider if I believed in that, I would consider AI a threat to us.
Hostile.
Okay, I want you to think about something this way. I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, we are.
If we're being studied, if this is coming back, and we're at a defining moment from our programmers, okay, what would you do to study? You would take every single thing you could learn about each and every level of consciousness that's active, okay, which would be in the biological body, never mind the collective field, and you would want to put it together as a collective to see who, what, where, and how, who would be able to now evolve out of the current chaos.
Sounds like the Borg. Sounds like the Borg. You will be assimilated.
Well,
No, assimilated, the board was everybody would go be
Collective.
controlled by the collective. This is NHI programmed this. The people that the programming, the people that have the ability to go to the next level of programming will go, but they have to find out who they are. So you would have to create all kinds of chaos to see how each and every person reacts,
Oh,
mentally or consciously.
wow.
I know. I know, Chris. It's a little strange, but what do they tell you? What this is what I was taught when I went to church. They showed us a movie, and one day all these people just disappear.
right. That's
And then the 7 years of tribulation happens.
Right.
How are they going to know who to pick and not to pick? Just because you can have somebody out there out there right now publicly that you think's a perfect soul, but they're not.
right.
They have a whole different level of what they're doing that no one knows about. So the only true way, because there's no way you could keep track of each person, you would have to study them collectively to decide who, what, where, and where it goes and leaves.
I don't know, John. I mean, that's one thing I really got to take a look at, deep dive into, but I would say that there is a plan in place that they know who they want and who they don't want. And I think that plan changes because people change. And if people change,
That's a valid point. You came into this world one way and you changed. That's what they have to figure out. who has stayed the course
All right.
of the
Let's say I
programming
became
and
a
can go to
sinner.
the what?
And then at midlife, I redeemed myself and became a good person.
Okay.
Okay, does my past eliminate me from being taken?
That would be up what you're programming.
Right. And that's
Hypothetically, it'd be where you are programmed now, not where you were programmed.
right. But the teachings say that if you redeem yourself,
The
no
wisdom.
matter how you did this, because remember, and I'm going to spiritually now, Jesus died on the cross along with thieves, and they redeemed themselves in front of Christ, and they were brought to heaven. Well, the Revelations say the same thing, that if you redeem yourself, I mean, yes, we are all sinners. And yes, in order to get to that point in time where God takes us, the Spirit takes us, we have to be semi, in concert to what He wants. But that doesn't mean people redeem themselves. See, this is a whole thing that you can go acres and acres out there.
Got to wrap up.
And change.
Yeah, and Kristen, you're right, and that's what the Green Belt is all about. That's what I wrote it for, to start thinking and using critical thinking skills and stop being programmed by the way they want to program you and how they want you.
Well, John,
to
I
do.
tell you, every time I do an hour with you, I get a headache. I got to go get some aspirins after.
But I'm glad. So next week, Bill, what's going to happen?
Yeah, but before I mention that, it's one thing. If you're going to learn from your mistakes and evolve and become a better person, or I would rather have someone that evolves and learns from mistakes than a person who repeats them. So that might be a whole part of the model too. You want something to learn from mistakes and evolve rather than repeat.
Yeah,
So
great.
that could be part of that whole thing too. That could be part of the equation. But next week I'm going to see a concert. So Chris and John, hopefully, and Commander Cobra will be here next week. I will be going to see a Rush tribute band. So I hope everybody enjoyed the show. And thank you for all those in chat participating and all those watching and listening on the network. And we will see you next week. But don't forget, Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, Chapter 8, Shadow Mirror will air. So make sure to check it out. Because like we mentioned, this is where you're going to see a lot more developing moving forward. Anyway, guys, any final words?
I'm good.
All
I'm good.
I can say is, I remember when we closed last week's show and we said, what does the next week hold for us? It was a doozy. So next week, this coming week, probably is going to be another one of those weeks where there's going to be a lot to talk about. To include tonight, we didn't even talk about the hearings that took place.
Or that video with the Hellfire, which is in the Toll missile or whatever. Yeah, we'll maybe get that. You guys can talk about that next week. Anyway, we got to run. Everybody have a great night, great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Till then, have a good night.